you everyone for being here. I think the energy in this room is certainly indicative of what's happening in New York right now. Tech Week is alive and well, and I want to do a huge thank you to Andreessen, who is the catalyst and the mastermind for Tech Week and brings this together. I think I heard, Zane will keep me honest, I think 700 events, is that right? Yeah? And Katya's been to every one of them so far, so, but you know, it's so pumped that you guys are here with us. In order for us to expense the copious amounts of alcohol you're enjoying, we have to say a few quick words about HSBC Innovation Banking. So real quickly, I would just highlight 3 sentences. This was built for founders and by founders. So a year ago, this didn't exist, and we've stood this up with a simple view that we could bring the 3 C's that you need at scale: capital, customers, and connections, and that we could do that with a $3 trillion balance sheet and an entity that's operating in 60 countries and one of the largest financial institutions. Most importantly, we can do that with simplicity and speed, because we know as founders and entrepreneurs, that's the most important thing for you. We're going to get started here, and we've got a really exciting session around all things AI perspectives, both from the venture capital standpoint, but also, just as importantly, from the buyer standpoint. So without further ado, I want to welcome Zane to the stage here. Thank you, Zane, for coming up. And Monique, our Chief Data Analytics Officer. So, thank you so much. Come on up, guys. Exactly. Okay, so we can tell this group wants to get back to the bar, so we're going to keep
most important part of any event.
Give us your 30-second introductions and backgrounds. Monique, we'll start with you.
Sure. So I'm the Chief Data and Analytics Officer here at HSBC. I've been in that role for about a year and a half. Prior to that, I was the CISO. So I think there's quite a few security folks here. So we can hit on some of those. And then prior to that, I was the CIO at 2 rather large insurance companies.
Excellent. Zane?
Yeah, I've been very fortunate in my career that I've been able to be on kind of many sides of the table. So started out as on the buyer side as the CISO of Etsy in the early days of Etsy and built and ran the security programs there. Ended up taking a bunch of lessons learned out of that and then going to the builder side and co-founded a cybersecurity company, which was Signal Sciences. We grew that for 7 years, grew that to 150 employees and 30 million in ARR, and then we exited that for a little under $1 billion in 2020, and then flipped over to the VC side, where I really am super passionate about helping out founders, especially at the early stage. So I focus on really early stage investing in cybersecurity, in platform engineering, and dev tooling. And so it's been kind of exciting to see things from many angles, for sure.
Excellent. Well, Zane, we'll stick with you for a second. I think before we dive into AI and some of the details there, just give us a state of the union. Like what is going on in the market? This is being recorded, so you know any predictions. Like we want to we'll
past
hold you
performance
accountable.
does not indicate. Yeah. Great.
Where is the Nasdaq going to be 12 months from now?
Yeah, exactly. There are much smarter people in the room on that than me. I will speak to the early stage VC side for sure, which is. I genuinely believe that this is an incredible time to start a company right now. I am very passionate about that, actually, and I think that some of the best and most enduring and generational companies come out of times when capital isn't free, when there are actually challenges, and you build really efficient, long-lasting companies as a result. And so I think a question that I get often is, should I start a company now? We all kind of we saw the kind of big VC reset of 2022, 2023, when it was a lot of different things froze up. You saw enterprise buy-in freeze up, you saw budgets freeze up, you saw capital freeze up, and so I think that's still on a lot of people's minds. And I would say from the early stage, particularly from kind of seed rounds and Series A rounds, and for the founders in the room or folks who are thinking about starting a company in the room, this is actually a fantastic time to start a company, because I think it will instill in you the habits that create companies that really last and really build, versus companies during times when capital is much easier to attain and things like that. So I think both from a market perspective and then also even from a locale perspective, I'm curious, how many folks are locally based here versus flew in? Yeah, local here as well. Awesome. So I think one of the interesting things that kind of came out of COVID was, and this is very anecdotal, but I really see New York kind of centralizing as the #2 market on this. as far as starting companies, launch and doing early stage sort of enterprise companies. It's always been a hub for fintech and all sorts of things like that. But coming out of COVID, you just really sort of noticed it here. I've been here 15 years from the Bay Area. And in '09, when I moved here, tech in New York looked very, very different than it does today. And so I think kind of tying those two things together, I think not only is it a really good time to start a company right now, I think it's also a really great time to start a company in New York. And it's always a great time to start a company in San Francisco. So it is by far and away number one, obviously. But
Zane knows I'm from San Francisco. So
yeah.
thanks for the shout out. Yeah,
absolutely.
who knew I would? San Francisco would need a shout out from New York.
A
sign of the
great
times.
spot.
All right, we got to get into the topic du jour. So Gen AI, tell us about how that plays into what you're seeing kind of in the overall capital market.
Never heard of it. What is it again?
Exactly.
Look, obviously it's impacting everything, right? And so I think for some businesses, it impacts 100% of their business. For some businesses, it impacts part of their business. And I think the key is really knowing how much it changes for you and really focusing on that. I mean, I'll give you kind of a data point where I've done 3 seed deals so far this year. Of those, AI is really central to 2 of them and sort of adjacent to 1 of them. And so I think that when there's a massive shift like this, it shifts things for buyers and we'll get into all of that.
Yeah.
But I think from a company perspective, often when there's a huge shift like this, founders sometimes feel the pressure to just try to completely align with that. And I would say resist that pressure. Find out for the company that you're starting, does this new trend really align with what you're building, or is it a component of what you're building? And really factor that in. Don't try to overdo it on it.
Yeah. Monique, let's shift over to you. So you are the Chief Data and Analytics Officer of a company with 40 plus million customers, 240-ish thousand people. I cannot imagine how you spend your days, nights, and weekends. But obviously, anytime we have new technology, that creates a lot of excitement. It creates a lot of risk, I would imagine. You have the incredible task of both helping us optimize data, but also safeguarding it. So as it pertains to this new kind of, and we can challenge whether it's new, but this wave of technology innovation, maybe just level set, what are some of the things that HSBC is doing and experimenting with around this technology? And then, what are some of the things we're doing or that you're worried about in terms of safeguarding and utilizing it?
Yeah, I mean, it's such an exciting time. What I would say, though, is HSBC and I think all of our peer banks have been doing AI forever. I mean, regular, traditional AI, machine learning has been around. We have thousands of models out in the live and out in, making decisions and helping us every day. What's interesting is Gen AI has brought a new world of excitement because the opportunities are absolutely incredible, but also a lot of great fear because the risks are also quite big. And the risks, and so what we're trying very hard to do is figure out what are those 5, 6 areas where we can really, really make a difference. And we can, invest big, implement big, and do things great for our customers and for our employees. But then there's the flip side that are, these models learn. And so what's predictable in a traditional model is you put an input in and you can predict what the output is. In the new models, you put an input in and you can't. And so how we implement them in something like a banking industry where we're making a lot of important decisions and very highly regulated decisions is a very interesting thing to do. So we've created because we love governance in banking, we've created an AI governance committee where actually every new Gen AI program, every new novel AI, because we don't know what, Gen AI is it. Any novel AI program comes through, and we really look at it to see, is it worth it? Is it one of our 5 or 6 big bets? Is it too risky, or is it the right thing for us to do? And we really work. It's an amazing thing. When we started, we're like, okay, do you think folks will come? And what we have to do is turn down people at the door because the topic is so exciting, everybody wants to be a part of it. But there's a few no-brainers that we're moving really fast and furiously. We've set some pretty clear guardrails around what we can do with Gen AI because we don't know we can't predict how the model will respond, and what we will do because we feel very safe with them. So it's been an incredible journey. We're learning every day, and there's lots of learnings and gotchas along every step and every time we talk about it. So it's exciting.
Without revealing state secrets, are there one or two kind of areas that you're particularly excited about?
Yeah, I mean, there's the no-brainer in code generation. I think we have something like 17,000 or 40,000 developers at HSBC. So we are a small tech firm, really. And so, having the ability to have code generation and accelerate our building of code and creating new features and capabilities is a very safe, it's all get tested just as the way the traditional does, so we can be very safe in what we do and just be much more productive. I think when you look at areas like customer service and being able to know more about our clients and what they need, it's really good. Where we're staying away from is any decisioning, automated decisioning, because at this point it's not predictable enough. And so we're learning, and it's a journey.
Yeah.
It's a journey.
So you both are buyers. You're a current buyer, Zane, former buyer, but current investor around this. What are some of the challenges as you're looking for, okay, is this the one? With signal to noise, there's so many companies, so many opportunities around that. Like, how do you filter through it?
I think what's interesting is there's do's and don'ts, and it's a new technology. And like Zane said, like every company thinks if they put .ai, they're hot. And actually,
in the Bay Area, they still are, by the way.
Fair. But what actually is interesting is with Gen I, and if you're working in financial services industries, it's hard for me to talk if you're selling to someone outside of financial services. But if you're selling to us in the financial services, if you say it has Gen AI, and it's built on Gen AI, and it does all these great things, you're going to get a lot more governance. So if you can do it with traditional AI, or if you can do it, the capability with existing, not calling it Gen AI, don't put it in, because it's going to take you a lot longer to sell to us. Which I think is countercultural, because everybody wants AI, Gen AI, because it's hip. But actually, we're quite cautious as bankers, and so it'll be a much bigger timeline for you to get through. But I also think that if you come up with something where Gen AI really does something incredible, it transforms, it makes a transaction or a capability that now takes us 2 weeks and it's instantaneous, or it's a better by 5,000%, you can be more confident in the results, go for it. And we will look at it, and you'll have more of the banks pounding down your door saying, let me in, if it's differentiated. But to do it where it doesn't need differentiation, I think you're going to spend a lot of money, do a lot of extra testing, go through a lot more checks and balances, and probably have a slower sale, if a sale, because something else will work. So to me, it's more on the use it where it's right, but don't just try and throw it in to get our attention.
Zane, what about from your perspective?
Yeah, I think, look, cybersecurity in particular is a brutally hard market from a go-to-market perspective, because buyers are always just getting hit by 1,000 vendor. I mean, yeah, we've both been on the receiving end of that. 1,000 pitches for any given market segment. I would say the advice to founders in the room is really, Gen AI is the how, not the what. And I think that really for any company selling any product into security, into platform engineering, into really anything, any technical buyer, really what you want to focus on is the what. What business pain point are you actually solving? Gen AI might be the reason that this is an area that hasn't worked before, but now does. It might be something, a reason to take a fresh look at something. But just saying, oh, we're Gen AI, that often won't get you a buyer to actually answer the phone. Like really focusing in on what is the business pain point you are solving, and then how do you solve it, and how are you differentiated is really the key. And I think Gen AI is really fascinating. I am extremely bullish and extremely optimistic on all of this. Yeah. I think it can unlock a lot of market segments that historically really struggled, especially inside security. Because as we all know in security, some of the biggest challenges is just we're all drowning in alerts. You're drowning in data. You don't have enough people for it. And so being able to effectively automate has been the biggest push for the last 20 years of security. And this is a new unlock.
And I think for security, the big thing is, how do you help CISOs of big companies or small companies protect against the bad guys? Mm-hmm. Because the bad guys don't have the rules we have. The bad guys can try it, see what happens, and if it doesn't work, then they'll try something and the intention is to break us. And so if you can come up with something that protects us from what now these new tactics that the bad guys are going to use to attack firms and say, look, this is a new vector that they can come in at you at. We can protect you from that vector. That's a really, and it could be Gen AI or it could be just ML, it could be anything. But I think if you look from here's what the bad guys are going to do to attack you, here's how we can protect you, that's a product that people will be very, very interested because it's something that all of us are doing a lot of research and exploration and proof of concepts, but I don't know that anyone has it nailed yet.
No.
Yeah.
No.
So Monique, you kind of touched on this, but as you look around the market, the companies you're meeting, the solutions that you're evaluating or that are finding their way to you, what are you not seeing that you wish you were? Like, what are the gaps that, gosh, I wish someone would really focus on this particular area or use case, like anything that stands out to you?
What's interesting is, and this is in my role as the analytics officer rather than as AI, ESG is probably one of the biggest problems from a reporting standpoint and understanding where you are. Every data company, and every company that sells data on ESG uses different metrics, uses different baselines. Everyone reports it a little differently. If there's something that can help us come as firms, because it's for the good of the world, it's not for HSBC specifically, but for the good of the world, if someone could come up with, here's how you can, here are some very predictable, high quality ESG metrics on different firms, on different, deforestation, on whatever the topic is, it would be amazing because we are spending an incredible amount of really pick and shovel work, not glamorous work, trying to figure out how we make all that data align so that we can do our reporting, so that we can support our clients as they're going into as they're looking for loans in ESG or in non-ESG things. It's a really challenging space that is just so open for improvement, and there's no one there.
Is anyone in this room working on that right now? Did anyone just pivot their business into that?
Hard pivot.
Yeah, hard pivot. All right, that's great. Thank you. Zane, I have no idea how many companies you look at every year, but I mean, thousands?
Yeah.
What do you wish you were seeing?
So I think, let me answer from the investor side instead of the buyer side, and kind of the framework that I look at it through, which is when there's a technology shift like this, which existing market segments does this kind of create a new opportunity to go against, right? There's a legacy set of incumbents that have been there for a while, but no one's been able to dislodge them, and then suddenly the market changed, and there's now an opportunity to really create a new company in that space. That's kind of one set, and then the second set would be with an introduction of a new sort of approach and technologies, what new problems does that create where you can...
I was going to say, in the Gen AI economy, what are the new banking products we have to provide?
Yeah.
Right? So there's a whole new world that's existing with all these new Gen AI capabilities. How do we bank those new capabilities or those new things? I don't know. That would be also really interesting to explore.
So kind of an adjacency to that, off script, by the way. But when you think about automation, you mentioned coding and how we're already seeing that show up in our business. Probably many people in this room as well. Some of the repeatable, mundane is going to be completely seamless at this point. And we're in a services industry, which involves human touch, but also solutions and speed and digitization. How do we balance human touch and digitization alongside these technologies?
Yeah, so my answer is probably not a great one. I've been in this industry for a really
Please
long
tell
time.
me we still need bankers.
I did, absolutely. Absolutely more. I did tech before tech was cool. Like I was one of those people when I graduated from college and everybody was going into much cooler things in technology, and that was just something I loved. And I've seen so many of these pivotal shifts where people have said, oh my God, what's going to happen to the workforce? And all that's happened to the workforce is new industries are created, more people need to be employed, and the economy grows. So I think that's probably going to be the same. I mean, there's going to be people that are going to have to be retrained because some of their jobs will obviously be changed. But I've never seen a technology shift to make something worse. It just creates new industry and new opportunity. So I actually think there's a short-term worry where we need to make sure that everybody has the training and the capability to go do something new. But I'm positive this is going to just create more industry.
Zane, similar perspective?
Word for word.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, there you go.
Absolutely. No,
So we can say goodbye to our universal income.
Your words, not mine. No, I think that like there's a real unlock with shifts like this, right? You look at major technology shifts that we've had over the last 15, 20 years, and even go back 30 years, like cloud, mobile, the internet, these things have all unlocked tremendous economic opportunities.
That's right.
And we're all here because of them. And so I'm very optimistic on the future of things like this.
All right. We're going to wrap it. I can tell this group wants to get back to the bar. But before we do,
My kind of group.
words of advice for the founders, the creators in this room.
Sure.
So I'm going to stick with you.
I'll wrap up with how I started, which is I genuinely believe this is one of the best times that there is to start a company right now. I think that the conditions are such that you will create, or you have the opportunity to create a company that will truly endure, because there are actually challenges right now here. And look, starting and building and scaling a company is, having done it, I think one of the hardest things you will do in your career on the professional side of your life. And I think that the exciting way of looking at the opportunity right now is that the conditions are right for building something really iconic. And so I am very excited for folks that are starting companies right now.
Yeah.
Renee?
How do you beat that? So I think it's probably just advice. As you're looking at it, as I've done a lot with new tech firms as well as I've been going through my career, and I think it's really solving for the problem, like knowing the problem you want to solve, keeping it constrained. Don't jump to the next thing because you have a meeting with someone and they say, if you did this too, that would be great, which I always do. But stick to your guns and deliver that thing and keep it constrained. And specifically if you're using Gen AI as your baseline and capabilities, the more constrained the use case, the more controllable the use case because of the unknown answers, the more likely you are to get to live. So I think just stick to your guns.
Love that. My only advice is
What's your advice?
bank at HSBC.
You know what? I would agree.
That's all I got. That's all the time we have. Zane, Monique, thank you so much. I know this could have gone a lot longer. And a huge thank you to all of you. I think you touched on this, Zane, but you all are choosing to do incredibly hard things. I've seen a glimpse of what it's like to found something to chase your vision and your dream. So thank you for doing that. Without you doing that and your audacity and your grit to do that, none of us would be here. And thanks for doing it in New York. Just come visit San Francisco sometime. So go forth, be merry, enjoy the space. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Guys, here. Great job, Monique.